Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today we're answering some of the most pressing questions about common prayer mistakes. What's the ruling on praying with uncovered shoulders for men? Does yawning break the prayer? Can you pray while resisting the urge to urinate or defecate? And many more.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. These issues are crucial for ensuring the validity of our Salah. Let's start with common errors related to prayer postures.
What are the typical posture mistakes?
The most widespread mistake here is what the scholars call pecking like a crow, rushing through the movements without tranquility. The Prophet ﷺ once saw a man praying hastily and advised him to perform the movements with proper tranquility, ensuring that each position is done calmly.
How long is tranquility supposed to be?
Long enough to say the required dhikr calmly and for your limbs to become still. If you bow and immediately shoot back up or touch your forehead to the ground and pop right back, the majority of scholars say that rukn is invalid and must be repeated.
So speed itself can invalidate the prayer?
When it eliminates tranquility, yes, the same applies between positions. You must stand fully upright after bowing and sit properly between the two prostrations. Skipping these pauses invalidates those pillars of prayer.
Let's talk about prostration specifically. What mistakes happen there?
The most serious is lifting one of the required body parts off the ground intentionally. You must keep your forehead with your nose, both palms, both knees, and the toes of both feet on the ground throughout the sujood.
What if someone lifts their feet for most of the sujood?
If someone lifts one of the required body parts during sujood, it may affect the validity of that sujood depending on the extent and intention, and scholars advise correcting it if possible.
I've seen people rest their forearms flat on the ground during sujood. Is that acceptable?
Some people rest their forearms flat on the ground during sujood. The Prophet ﷺ advised keeping the proper posture, avoiding lying down like dogs to maintain the correct form of sujood. While scholars debate whether this invalidates the prayer, many consider it severely disliked and potentially problematic if it distorts the proper form of prostration.
Moving to clothing, this seems straightforward, but apparently it's not.
Clothing errors are more common than people realize. Praying in clothing that clearly exposes the aura invalidates the prayer, so it is important to ensure proper coverage.
Before we continue, please comment Subhanallah below.
Now, what is the ruling on wearing tight clothing that covers the skin but reveals the shape?
For men, clothing between the navel and knee should be loose enough to conceal the shape of the body. If it clearly outlines the body, it may affect the validity of the prayer, according to many scholars. The requirement isn't just coverage, it's proper concealment.
There's also the issue of images on clothing, correct?
Yes, praying while wearing clothing with complete images of humans or animals is sinful, though the prayer itself remains valid. However, it creates distraction and disrespect for the prayer.
What about men praying with bare shoulders?
The Prophet ﷺ forbade men from praying with nothing covering their shoulders. The majority of scholars say the prayer is valid but disliked. A minority consider it invalid. The safe position is to always cover at least one shoulder.
Let's address something that catches many people off guard: speaking during prayer.
Deliberately speaking during prayer for reasons unrelated to it may invalidate the prayer, according to the majority of scholars.
What if someone speaks accidentally or out of ignorance?
The stronger opinion is that the prayer remains valid if done mistakenly or without knowledge of the ruling. There's a hadith about a companion who returned salam during prayer in the early days of Islam, and he wasn't commanded to repeat it.
Excessive movements is another area of confusion. Where's the line?
Small movements for a need are permissible. The Prophet ﷺ himself adjusted his position and once carried his granddaughter during prayer. But continuous unnecessary movements, fidgeting with clothes, checking phones, looking around repeatedly, diminish the prayer. Excessive unnecessary movements may affect the validity of the prayer, according to scholars.
What about interlacing fingers or cracking knuckles?
These are disliked and reduce the reward. The Prophet ﷺ forbade interlacing fingers when heading to the masjid, so it's even more inappropriate during the prayer itself.
Yawning seems minor, but you're about to tell me it matters too, aren't you?
It doesn't invalidate the prayer, but the Prophet ﷺ said yawning is from shaitan and instructed us to suppress it as much as possible or cover our mouths. Allowing yourself to yawn freely without resistance is disliked and reduces the reward.
For those praying in congregation, what are the critical mistakes with the imam?
The most serious is preceding the imam in movements. The Prophet ﷺ said, the imam is appointed to be followed. Intentionally completing a full rukn before the imam may affect the validity of the prayer, according to some scholars.
What about moving at the exact same time as the imam?
Even this is disliked. The sunnah is to move after the imam begins moving, not simultaneously. This ensures true following.
Standing alone behind the rows is something I see frequently. What's the ruling?
If there's space in the rows ahead and someone chooses to stand alone behind them without valid reason, a group of scholars, including Imam Ibn Baz, say that prayer is invalid. The person should look for a gap, and if none exists, stand to the right of the imam if possible.
What about gaps within the rows themselves?
Leaving large gaps and not straightening the rows is disliked and reduces the reward. The Prophet ﷺ emphasized straightening the rows and closing gaps, saying it's part of perfecting the prayer. However, this shouldn't lead to the opposite extreme, hurting your neighbor by pressing too hard against them.
Some people recite loudly behind the imam in Fajr and Maghrib. Is this acceptable?
The imam's recitation suffices for those behind him in the audible prayers. Reciting loudly enough to disturb others is disliked and reduces the reward. The follower should recite silently.
Let's discuss the ending of prayer. Can mistakes there invalidate everything?
Yes, if someone distorts the salam so severely that it no longer conveys the greeting, saying Assalamu alaikum, which means death upon you, or omitting Assalamu alaikum entirely, they haven't properly exited the prayer. The minimum required is Assalamu alaikum said correctly.
What about the Salat al-Ibrahimiyya in the final tashahhud?
There's scholarly difference here. Some consider it obligatory, others a confirmed sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ consistently performed it. The cautious approach is never to deliberately omit it.
We should address praying while needing to use the bathroom. Many people push through this.
The Prophet ﷺ explicitly forbade praying while holding back urine, feces, or gas. The prayer remains valid, but it's sinful, and the reward is severely diminished because the person cannot achieve proper focus and humility.
What's the principle behind that ruling?
Anything that prevents presence of heart should be removed when possible. This includes praying in extremely noisy environments when quieter spaces are available, or praying while distracted by hunger when food is present.
And what about people who constantly doubt their prayer? Did I pray 3 rak'ahs or 4?
Occasional doubt is normal. Build on what you're certain of or what you most likely did, then perform sujood as-sahw. But someone who experiences constant, obsessive doubt should ignore these whispers entirely. The scholars say such a person should not entertain every doubt, as this is from shaitan's attempts to ruin the prayer and exhaust the worshipper.
We've covered so much, from how we begin prayer to how we end it, from what we wear to how we move. What's the final guidance for someone who's just realized they've been making some of these mistakes?
First, don't despair. Allah accepts sincere worship and doesn't burden anyone beyond their capacity. Second, learn the correct way now and implement it going forward. Third, if you realize you've been praying invalidly for a period, the majority of scholars say you should make up those prayers. But if you were genuinely ignorant and doing your best, many scholars hold that Allah's mercy encompasses that situation.
The key is moving forward with knowledge.
Exactly. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Pray as you have seen me praying." Seek knowledge, ask scholars when uncertain, and prioritize the quality of your prayer over quantity. One prayer performed correctly with presence of heart is worth more than 1,000 performed carelessly. May Allah accept our prayers and guide us to perform them in the manner most pleasing to Him.
Amin. What is the most common prayer mistake you've noticed yourself making recently? Share your experience with us in the comments below. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.